I love my job because it's always different and I get to work with fantastic people all around the world. I'm Dr. Sarah Casewell and I am an STFC Ernest Rutherford Research Fellow and lecturer at the University of Leicester. I'm an observational astronomer, so I go to telescopes around the world. I take images and spectra of mainly stars and exoplanets. And I then analyze the data, look at the images, and find out what that tells us about the stars. When I was about 13, we were on holiday. My parents were like, we really want to go to the cinema and watch Apollo 13. And I came out of the cinema basically going, I want to be a flight director. That's what I want to do. That sort of problem solving under pressure, trying to fix issues in creative ways, that really spoke to me. And that sort of led me towards the space end of things. So I grew up in a small town in Staffordshire called Biddulph. It's near the border with Cheshire, and I went to school at a comprehensive high school in Congleton, Cheshire, which is just over the border, not far from Jodrell Bank. So I've always been familiar with Jocelyn Bell Burnell and the discovery of pulsars because, Jodrell Bank Observatory did a lot of the early work there. But I probably didn't really know any other female astronomers at that point. And obviously there was nobody that you saw in any of the books on the space program that there weren't women. We now know that's not the case, but at the time they weren't front and center like they are now. But no, I was very lucky in that nobody ever told me I couldn't do it or that I shouldn't do it. It was sort of encouraged and not discouraged, which was really good. And I know that's not the case for everybody, sadly. So we were very normal, I guess. Neither of my parents went to university. GCSEs, I did what was standard for my school at the time, which was the 2 Englishes, maths, double science. And then my school had a requirement of 1 language, 1 art, 1 humanity, and a design technology. So, I have music, geography, French, and graphic design, which I was universally terrible at. So when it came to A-levels, I knew I wanted to do physics. That meant I needed to do maths, and I wasn't entirely sure about my other one, which ended up being chemistry. So my parents were keen that me and my brother went to university, but they didn't really have a lot of experience as to what it was like. So that was a bit of a learning curve, I think, and certainly when I stayed on to do a PhD, there was a big learning curve there for my family about what a PhD was. I know at school there can be a lot of pressure to take the right subject, sometimes particularly for sciences. I went to a comprehensive school. We did dual award science because that was what the school did. We didn't have any options. I didn't do further maths because it wasn't offered. And they were not barriers. They might have made things easier, but the fact that I didn't do them wasn't a problem. The fact that I didn't go to a selective school wasn't a problem. It didn't matter that I didn't have an individual GCSE in physics or that I didn't have further maths at A-level. That was all fine. But it helped that the university recruits from a wide base of students. So I felt I fitted in. There were lots of people from the same sort of background as me. Originally, I wanted to work with human spaceflight and help put people to the International Space Station. And then midway through my undergraduate degree, I ended up wandering more towards the astrophysics side of things. And during my degree, somebody said, you might want to think about doing a PhD, which I applied for. And then on the visit day for the PhD, somebody said, you should talk to Dr. Jameson, which I did. And he told me about these objects called brown dwarfs, which are failed stars. They form like a star, but they never get hot enough to fuse hydrogen to helium in their cores. And so you end up with this thing that's the size of Jupiter, but it's kind of a star. And I was sold at that point. And that was what I ended up doing for my PhD. And that's still sort of my main research focus now. So my career path is probably quite typical for an academic. So the usual sort of A-levels, undergraduate degree, a three-year PhD, which was normal at the time. They're now nearer to 4. And then I took up what's called a postdoc, or I was a postdoctoral researcher for 2 years with my PhD supervisor, still at Leicester working on brown dwarfs. And my job sort of content then changed a bit. So I stayed at Leicester to still be a postdoctoral researcher, but I had 2 5-year positions, which are longer than the average of 3. And they were very diverse in terms of what I was doing. So I did a bit of project management. I worked on proposing for new space missions. I worked to help a little bit with the building of the space park here in Leicester. So I did more than just research for the 10 years, and that really, really suited me. I like a challenge. I don't like to be doing the same thing every day. So having that diversity and having to go and find different people around the university, I need to know how to do this. Can you help me figure it out? Was really helpful. So an average week for me might involve writing a proposal to one of the big telescopes around the world, where I have to say what I want to observe, when I want to observe it, and with what instrument, and to really sort of put forward what my science is, why it's important, why I need to do this. I will have to work with my PhD students who are writing papers, doing their own research right now. I have to meet my undergraduate students to guide them, but really to let them take the lead in what they're doing within their research, and they have to write reports, so to help make sure that's sort of set out in a logical way. I will hopefully at some point get a chance to look at my own data. So that might mean running computer code to extract the images and to process the images a little bit. So stuff that we get from telescopes doesn't always look as pretty as the images you see on television. We normally get them in single color filters, sort of a chunk of a wavelength. And then we have to sort of massage them a bit, if you like. You have to take the background off. We have to take issues with the detector off if there's a dodgy pixel or something. And then at some point, the expectation is I have to write this up. I have to disseminate my results to both the public and the scientific community. So I have to write essentially a report of some description explaining exactly what I did so somebody could replicate it. So the job is pretty varied on a week-to-week basis. The UK has always had a large role in space. It might not always be that obvious, but it's always been there. So University of Leicester has had something they made in space every year since the late 1960s. We've always done a huge amount, particularly in the science arm of things, but also in telecommunications as well, within sort of the commercial arms of a lot of companies. There's the engineering side of things for people who are building missions, and that covers all scopes of engineering. So mechanical, electrical, aerospace, systems, control, all this sort of stuff. It means we can pull people from this wider pool of jobs sort of within space. And as commercialization of space becomes bigger, you've then got space law aspects and all that sort of stuff that perhaps belongs traditionally to the social sciences, but has a huge amount of relevance for the space industry. And now is a really interesting time to get involved because there will be jobs within the space industry we don't even know we need yet. As with the spaceports launch, as we're looking for more sort of commercial satellites to be created and built at places around the country. So yeah, I think now is actually a really exciting time to want to get involved with the space industry. Take the whole sort of space bit aside. That's the important bit of the job is the problem solving, thinking outside the box, working with people nationally and internationally, getting to see the world. And if that sort of thing appeals to you, then the space industry is a good place to be.